prime example of black male cowardice. Yep, I said it, clip it, make a footnote, bookmark, whatever you got to do. That's what this is, black male cowardice.
So could you see yourself seeing what you see now? And obviously Donald Trump can't run for president again, but if he could, under the current circumstances, could you see yourself voting for him?
Quite possibly. I'm not going to sit up there and dismiss that anymore. I think we're beyond that. He would have to prove a lot, Mark. And I'm not talking about policy now. For a second, allow me to say this. What concerned me about Donald Trump, and the reason I voted against him and voted for Kamala Harris, was because I felt that he would be divisive, that he would create chaos because he demands such a level of loyalty and fealty to him. And that would take priority over governing our nation. That was my concern. And so I'm looking for both sides to work across the aisle from one another. Having said that, when you see some of the things that he said, if he follows through on some of the things that he has said, it's not just about eradicating inflation, improving the economy, obviously controlling our borders. These are all things that I care about, make no mistake about that. And I certainly would support him in that regard. But it can't be just about fealty to him and loyalty to him. It has to be about getting the job done on behalf of what's in the best interest of the American people, as opposed to yourself, and not engaging in the kind of juvenile tendencies, tweeting all the time and going after people who are really much irrelevant in the grand scheme of things. You do things like that and you show that you're the adult in the room, yeah. I don't think anybody could dismiss Donald Trump at this particular moment in time, not just because of him, but because of what we've seen the Democrats do. We're not falling for it any longer. The American people aren't falling for it any longer. I voted Democrat, and I got to tell you something right now. I don't like the fact that I did. I don't like what I'm seeing. I don't want to hear about, oh, we're about law, we're about a law. Nobody's above the law. Nobody's above the law. But then you go out and you pardon your son and you try to blame everybody else for it. I don't want to hear about defund the police. I don't want to hear about, what, there should be open borders. I don't want to hear this stuff. And I don't think most of the American people want to hear that. We're thinking about the state of affairs that's in. We're not about America only, but being about America and prioritizing what's going on in this nation with the desolate and the disenfranchised and everybody else in between, and looking out for the best interest of what it is for America. That is not a crime for an American politician or a commander-in-chief or a senator or a congressional figure to have that mentality. I want them to have that mentality. So I think about things along those lines. And I'm no longer interested in, nor do I believe any of us should be interested in listening to a bunch of fear-mongering to tell us who we shouldn't vote for. Why don't you come up with a plan that tells us why we should vote for you?
He then goes on to say that he's open to voting Republican under certain conditions. Like, he gave a completely emotional, effeminate response for why he was reluctant to vote for Trump. And to me, this is the linchpin that I want to spend a considerable amount of time on. Y'all, this is, when you hear what Stephen A. said, that is a man in his feelings. This is how an emotional female that lacks logic or rationality, that's how they argue. And I'm sorry, men should not think this way. It makes no sense. It makes no sense for you to masterfully articulate all of the things that were good about Trump's policies. Can't think of one thing that Kamala said that she was going to do that would be good for the country, and then cast your vote for her anyway, or at least tell the public that you did. That makes no sense. How can men who think this way lead communities? This is what happens when you have generations of men raised by women without strong men to help them in the area of rationality and logic. A man who loves him be like, son, that don't make no sense. You just said that it shouldn't be a crime to want America to flourish, to have law and order, to close the border, and to take care of America first, to get rid of inflation, and to have, like, it didn't make any sense. For you to articulate, like I said, masterfully, all of the things that were good with one side, and then to cast your vote for the other side. This is reflective of a man who is fearful of public backlash from the pro-blackity black mob and his white liberal overlords who control him. Full stop. That's what this was. Because these are the words spoken by a man who wants so bad to be free from the plantation, but he's gotten so comfortable living in a house with massa that he can't even imagine life on his own. Has no concept of what it would look like over yonder functioning in his freedom, right? Growing up with master, it provides all sorts of perks, right? You get to sleep in the big house. You get to eat better food. You know, they don't give you the scraps. You actually get an actual meal. You get to live, right, in the shadow, under the applause and the approval of master, just as long as you affirm him and his ideology, no matter how wicked or evil or perverse he is being toward you or your people, you will sell out. Like the people who are calling you sellouts for disagreeing with them, you're actually the sellout because you won't stand up to them and be brave. So in the modern sense, Stephen A., he has become accustomed to the creature comforts of living and navigating in the world of what I call the beast, right? The beast signs his paycheck, so he will go only but so far, even if it makes him look weak and confused and out here sounding silly. Y'all heard the man. He articulated in his own words, these are the policies that Trump was supporting that I agree with. He didn't name not one policy that Kamala was pushing that he agreed with. But when Mark Levin asked him, he was like, yes, I voted for her. He votes for the Democrats. You sound weak and confused. Why? Because this is about money and power and influence. And y'all, I have talked about this. I've talked about this before in the past, and I am not going to retract my stance on this. But this is a prime example of black male cowardice. Yep, I said it, clip it, make a footnote, bookmark, whatever you got to do. That's what this is, black male cowardice. Because the response to the backlash that Stephen A. is going to give is a textbook case of what not to do. And look, I'm not throwing this word cowardice around lightly, but when I see someone with a platform the size of Stephen A. starts walking back the truth because of fear, we've got to talk about it. Yeah, I'm a YouTuber, right? So this is my side of the YouTube streets. But those of us who are content creators, who knows the way this game works, I looked at Stephen A's channel. I analyzed to what publicly you can see is his analytics. His podcast, apart from what he's doing with ESPN, Stephen A ain't got a problem getting views. So that tells me he's carved out enough of an audience to, if he told ESPN and Disney to kiss him where the sun don't shine, people would follow him because they just like him and they like his his sports commentary, and they like the fact that he's loud and abrasive and he reminds you of that old uncle that don't, you know what I'm saying? Like, people like that. I used to like Stephen A. when I was a liberal, and there are times sometimes when Stephen A. say something, I'd be like, you know what? He telling the truth. So based on his analytics, I'm like, you've made your money. I get it. You know, you may not be able to pull, I don't know what they're paying him, 10 mil a year, whatever. But for your self-respect and the ability to be free and function in your freedom and to say what you want to say and to just be free of the oppression, you could easily walk out on your own and be like, deuces, I'm done. I don't need you. And your people and your tribe will follow you, and people who are tired of all the woke stuff and that just want good sports commentary, they'll follow you. But he can't do that. Thank you so much for tuning in to this episode of the Standard of Truth podcast. If you've enjoyed today's conversation, don't forget to check out the Standard Home and Living lifestyle store at standardhomeandliving.com. We've got everything from book studies, journals, and even podcast merch, so you can take a piece of this conversation with you wherever you go. And of course, be sure to follow me on Facebook, X, Instagram, and TikTok for more updates, behind the scenes, and daily insights. You can also stay connected at thestandardofTruthPodcast.com, where you'll find all the latest news and events, including live events coming to a town near you. Thank you guys so much for joining me today. Until next time, keep standing firm in the truth. Grace and peace.